Well, coming up on today's show, we'll have a good look at the new Porsche Taycan, and in fact, Porsche's plans for the future. DPD plan to deliver with electric vehicles exclusively, and the brand new Range Rover Evoque debuts with the softest of soft hybrid systems. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, indeed, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. It's the weekend, Saturday, 24th of November, and it's Martyn Lee here. I've been through every EV story I can find today, so you don't have to. It's a quicker one today. Yesterday was a mammoth half an hour, and I appreciate your time, and I know you're busy. And so today we will get through a few stories quickly and save a few for tomorrow. Thank you very much to the team at myev.com. If you are in the market for buying and selling used EVs, or maybe, like me, you like to do some window shopping, that's what I've spent most of Black Friday week doing. We don't have Thanksgiving over here in the UK, but I've still enjoyed plenty of time just surfing around the internet, dreaming of things that I'd like to buy but can't afford. Well, if you want to do some window shopping, you can at myev.com and look at some of those used EVs that are now part of their inventory. Let's start with a weekend look at Porsche, and they are said to plan a 6.8 billion profit push for their electric cars. Porsche has an ambitious plan to improve operating profits by €6 billion, that's $6.8 billion over the next 8 years. They want to streamline operations as Porsche spends more to develop and build pure electric cars, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Speaking to Reuters today, the Taycan, which is Porsche's first full electric car, is exactly the example of the quandary facing automakers today. The four-door Taycan, which comes to market next year in 2019, is going to cost between €6,000 and €10,000 more to make than if they were to do a comparable traditional fossil car. These costs are not going to be passed on to customers, though. It means lower profits, spending reductions need to be made elsewhere if you are going to maintain that profitability. In total, the sports car maker is investing about the same as the profit they want to make extra on EVs, about €6 billion through to 2022 on electric mobility only. Porsche's working on electric car technology alongside their sister brand, Audi. Of course, we know how serious VW are now about EVs, and it's considering using the jointly developed underpinnings to offer electric versions of existing models like the Macan. It's the compact SUV. Well, Porsche has said the first cars from the new platform are going to be around in late 2021, and they expect half of deliveries will be full electric or hybrid in 2025. Meanwhile, the Porsche Taycan chief Stefan Weckbach, I hope that's how I say it in German, I've probably just completely mullered, for want of a better phrase, his surname there, maybe it's Weckbach, says, despite an all-electric powertrain, Porsche's virtues, the virtues of being a sports car, are completely preserved. That's according to Steven Loveday over at InsideEVs. The executive goes on to confirm that the Taycan will be on the market by the end of 2019. But what about the Macan? What about the Panamera? Well, he explains, their chief designer explains that the Taycan won't be a particularly spacious car. So Porsche has already approved the Mission E Cross Turismo. Now, that's the kind of expanded version. You know, you'll get your skis in there for your weekend away. He also shares that the range will not be an issue. Now, Stefan says that the 800-volt architecture means exceptionally fast charging. And I would chip in there and say, yes, it will be exceptionally fast charging where you can find an 800-volt charger. But anyway, he says the advanced cooling technology means the vehicle will be able to accelerate over and over and maintain high speeds. Yeah, that's something that I've seen Porsche talk about a lot over the last couple of years. I think a lot of these brands who sell on speed and the heritage of them being fast cars, I think they got a bloody nose from Tesla doing 2-second 0 to 60s, even the Model 3 doing 3.1 seconds 0 to 60 in some of those YouTube videos, even less than the official range was billed at. I think some of them, if you're a Porsche that does 0 to 60 in 4 or 5 seconds, I think you've got a bloody nose from Tesla. And so rather than going for an all-out crazy 1.8 seconds like the new Roadster, what Porsche did says, yes, that's all well and good, but we don't have to sit on the start line for 10 minutes and precondition the battery. we can just go and go and go again. So that's been their focus, and I do understand that if you want to take it to a track and have some fun at the weekend in your electric car. Now, he also shares that ramping up the charging infrastructure is going to be key, a top priority for Porsche. They know how serious it is to get the charging infrastructure out by 2020, and not just at Porsche dealers, but elsewhere as well. In the end, he admits that he was impressed with the Taycan's driving dynamics early on, and since then, the vehicle has gone on to be improved and improved and improved significantly. He says not just an electric car, it's a purebred Porsche. I'll put links to all those stories in our little mini look, a weekend look at where Porsche are with pure electric cars. Moving on to something completely different, as it was Thanksgiving earlier this week. Not here, like I say, in the UK. It's not something that has transferred from the US to the UK, like most things do. For instance, Black Friday arrived about 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's totally embraced over here, sales. What about all of those deals that you got some money off on yesterday and it goes on over the weekend? Maybe that's all around the world these days, the kind of pre-Christmas sales. Delivery company DPD will be delivering plenty of those in Europe. They want to electrify their entire fleet in Hamburg, Germany by the summer of next year. It means they'll operate zero emissions in the inner city of Hamburg next year. DPD wants to do a mix of electric vans and trucks and some small light EVs like scooters and bikes. The existing diesel vehicles are going to be replaced by the VW E-Crafters electrically powered cargo bikes, which, by the way, I'm seeing loads more of in London. I was on the bike today and I had 3 or 4 go flying past me. Now, who did they have on the side? It wasn't DP, maybe it was DPD logo they had. They were kind of in a pack, if you like, and they had battery-powered cargo bikes. And I was going at a fair enough pace on the bike today in London, and they flew past me. So these cargo bikes I'm seeing more and more of. There's e-scooters and e-trucks. Now, the company, DPD, has built up some positive experience in respect of these e-trucks in the UK, where they're using the e-Canter, the Fuso e-Canter from Daimler and Mitsubishi in London. And finally, 2 more stories today. Let's talk about some cars again. The Range Rover Evoque, beautiful luxury car. It's coming back for its round 2, its 2020 model year, as a completely redesigned vehicle, according to Autoblog. It's got a hybrid system as well. That's the headline. It is a 48-volt mild hybrid, so no plug initially. I'm sure there's going to be a plug at some point on the side of the Evoque, but not to begin with. It's going to be paired with the new turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with a combined output of 296 horsepower. It definitely sees the 48-volt system being as part of the core of the car. You can get one without it, but they say, Autocars say that they definitely see that 48-volt system as being an important part of the Range Rover Evoque. Land Rover says it works by harvesting the energy through an engine-mounted and belt-integrated starter generator. The energy stored in a small battery under the floor of the car. When you brake, the engine can turn off below 11 miles an hour. But Land Rover's more vague when it comes to acceleration. It simply assists the engine under acceleration, gives you a bit more shove from a stop, and it makes fuel economy possible, say Autoblog. I've seen these 48-volt hybrids do different things. Some of them as well, when you're at cruising speed, like 60 or 70 miles an hour, some of them can turn the engine off there and keep the car going, or keep the ancillary systems going. Some of these 48-volt hybrid systems will do things like the belts and the pulleys in the engine. Normally the engine would be using fuel, not just to move pistons up and down, but also move all the different belts and pulleys and air conditioning and things like that. Some of these nice cars can have ridiculously complex systems full of all these ancillaries that need moving by the petrol engine. That all affects efficiency. Now, with the new rules coming in 2020 here in Europe for the new efficiency rules, then they'll be doing all they can with those big SUVs to try and reduce that. 48-volt hybrid systems are actually a really cheap way it can cost from £1,000, about $1,200, to put one into a car, which is much, much cheaper than doing anything like a plug-in system, putting a plug on the side of the car, because when you do that, you end up with high voltage systems. You know what I'm talking about, the bright orange leads that you see in a regular EV that indicate the high voltage leads. Well, if you can avoid all of those and stick to a 48 volt system, it's much more cost effective. I guess it makes sense for the car makers, but you know what? Just put a plug on the car. Give it a decent-sized battery. Battery costs are falling so quickly at the moment. And then let people drive around properly on electric for a good 20 or 30 miles. These 48-volt mild hybrid systems kind of leave a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But I do understand the practicalities of why they exist. Right, final story today, and let's talk concept cars. Autocar has driven a concept car from Vauxhall / Opel, depending on where you're listening. It's the new GTX experimental EV, pure electric, but purely a concept, and some of these concept cars can cost hundreds of thousands. This no ordinary concept, they say. It shows the new face of Vauxhall Opel, and it's a new era in quick-acting creativity, they say. It's kick-started a year ago when PSA acquired the two former GM brands, the two former GM marks, in terms of Vauxhall and Opel. Says Steve Cropley for Autocar, this one is just over 4 metres long, the same size as the current Vauxhall Corsa. It's designed to use a new all-electric skateboard chassis, and it's a 50 kilowatt-hour battery at the moment. In production, it would give it a performance and range like the brand new Nissan Leaf. That would be like the 40 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, I'm guessing. Of course, there is a 60 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf coming soon. I'll mention that in a moment. That was the final story today I was going to mention. And Autocar have been driving it round a hangar inside. No pictures for anybody else to get a look at, all sealed off inside a building. And I imagine this thing is being kept well and truly under wraps. It's proper concept car territory, but it's interesting to see where Vauxhall and Opel could be going and frankly catching up, if I wasn't being very generous to them, because they are behind. So yes, the two final finalies today. Firstly, we're looking forward to seeing more of the BMW iNext. The BMW iNext is the really gorgeous, low-slung sports car concept, which we've seen a while ago, but now the world premiere of it is going to be next week. It's going to be at the LA Auto Show, and it's going to be streamed live at about 5:30, about 6 o'clock Central Time here in Europe, which is early doors in the morning, about 8:30 Los Angeles, West Coast time, Pacific time. So that's happening next week. BMW looking forward to premiering their BMW Vision iNext. The other thing as well is I saw on Twitter yesterday, German dealers are offering to take money from customers for the new Nissan Leaf, what they call the 60 kilowatt hour version. Now, as far as I know, Nissan are still to yet officially confirm things like that. There's been lots of leaks online. The only official confirmation we have from Nissan is that the bigger battery version is going to be called the E+, and that it will be coming sometime in the future. However, these German dealers seem to be taking people's money at the moment, and that could be indicative of the 60 kilowatt hour version coming soon. Days, maybe weeks. You can put €800 down to secure your place in the queue, and they do describe it as a 60 kilowatt hour version of the 2019 model year Nissan Leaf. I thought it might be maybe a 64 kilowatt hour battery going into that, as they're using LG Chem cells, but it looks like 60 kilowatt hour. That's fine, still going to be a good range, but like I say, it's weird because it's on Nissan kind of headed paper. It looks very official, but it's in German, and I've not done a Google Translate on the full text, but it still hasn't been officially confirmed as a car coming at any point in time by Nissan. So, predicting that we're close to an announcement. We'll see. will be watching it very closely. Thank you very much for listening today. If you've got any thoughts on question of the week, you've got a day to get that in. We'll read them all out on Sunday and set you a new question. Thanks to myev.com. They've set us this week's question of the week. Keep your comments coming in on email, on YouTube, and if you want to answer the question of the week on myev.com, go to the website, click on research at the top, and then there's question of the week, and it's a new way for you to feedback if you are registered on the kind of discuss forums, feedback forums. Here's the question this week. Since most dealers, let's face it, are not very well educated on EVs, don't really carry much stock, much inventory, how would you prefer to buy an EV in the future? Would it be for dealers to get their act together, if you do like that model, or would it be something new, like an EV gets brought to your house or workplace, you get to live with it for a day or a weekend, you get someone teach you about the car, but in return, there's a small price to pay, maybe a commission or a small fee. Let me know, and email me if you want to. The direct email address to me is hello@evnewsdaily.com. Thank you very much to 120 patrons of the podcast who keep this show going, and if it's the weekend and you've got a couple of minutes to have a look at patreon.com, that's Patreon, patreon.com/evnewsdaily. People have a bit more time at the weekend to have a look at what that's all about. If it's something that's totally optional, by the way, but if you are in a position where you'd like to support the podcast, there's lots of different tiers as well. Lots of people support at $5 a month. That's sort of the equivalent of kind of a posh coffee once a month. And then there's $10 a month if you want access to lots more bonus content, more EV news, more commentary. We dig deeper. And if you are a business, of course, and maybe you have a company or you represent someone, there's sort of tiers further up where we can help promote your company. And we'll talk about all of that again on tomorrow's podcast when we answer off question of the week and say thank you to everybody who does support us. But we can, of course, add your name to the list today to get you in time for tomorrow. In the meantime, there are 305 previous episodes of this podcast. How do we get to 305? Wow. They're all for free, and they're all on the usual places you get podcasts and on YouTube. If you subscribe, you get it first and free and automatically. And if you want to catch up with me over the weekend, I'll be hanging out on the socials. If you search EV News Daily, you'll find me. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.